In just 38 seconds, Barron Trump threatened to sue Jasmine Crockett on live national television after she linked his mother's immigration to a set of allegedly fake government documents. His voice trembled, her hands stayed calm, and for a moment, the entire room forgot how to breathe. What was in that file that made the son of a president lash out while the truth stood perfectly still? The red tally light blinked once and locked on. Room 1100 of the Rayburn House office building transformed in an instant. What had been a routine oversight hearing suddenly became a national spectacle. The cameras were live, the microphones were hot, and the name on every producer's cue card wasn't a cabinet secretary or ICE official. It was Barron Trump. Jasmine Crockett leaned forward into her mic, composed, deliberate. Her navy blazer was sharp as steel, her voice measured, but beneath the surface, something was humming. The hearing was officially titled Immigration Equity in the Abuse of Federal Channels for Elite Benefit. But everyone in that room knew what it was really about: the silent pipeline between power and privilege, and how easily it erases the rules meant for everyone else. She opened with facts: dry, legal, precise. Between 1995 and 2005, over 127 EB-1 visas, meant for individuals of extraordinary ability, were granted to applicants with minimal professional credentials. 39 of those were tied to private entities with political ties. She paused. No names. Not yet. Let them wonder. Then the door opened. The room turned as one. Tall, poised, press-polished. Barron Trump walked in without flinching, flanked by two attorneys and a media strategist trailing 2 steps behind. He was not on the witness list. He had not submitted written remarks, but he took a seat at the table like he owned it, and looked Jasmine Crockett in the eye like he expected her to flinch. She didn't. Instead, she nodded once, to no one in particular, and said, "We now recognize an unscheduled party wishing to make a statement defending former First Lady Melania Trump's immigration history. The chair will allow 2 minutes." The air snapped tight. Somewhere, a CNN producer whispered, "We just hit 2.6 million viewers." Jasmine's gaze didn't waver, because this wasn't just a boy defending his mother. This was the Trump name walking into Congress uninvited, daring the rules to apply. What happens when power walks in wearing a last name and thinks it's earned immunity? Barron Trump adjusted the mic like he'd done it 100 times before. Cameras tightened in. His posture was polished, rehearsed, every inch the son of a media dynasty. Then, without blinking, he began to read. "No one in my family broke the law. We followed every process, every step. And I won't let a low-level congresswoman rewrite our story for headlines." A murmur rolled through the chamber like distant thunder. Behind him, one of his lawyers smirked. The second scribbled something fast in a yellow legal pad. Jasmine didn't react. No flinch, no breath, just silence. Then she spoke. "Madam Chair," Jasmine said calmly, her voice cutting through the air like a scalpel, "I'd like to introduce a sealed document into the record." She reached down, not hurried, not hesitant, and slid a red-labeled file onto the table. Dated 1996, from the Immigration and Naturalization Service. The room didn't gasp. It held its breath. A ripple of discomfort passed behind the dais. Aide after aide leaned into whispers. Phones buzzed under the table. One reporter dropped her pen. Barron leaned forward. His smirk had vanished. "What is that?" he asked, his tone lower, sharper now. Jasmine didn't look at him. She looked straight ahead. "It's a file I was told didn't exist." Behind her, a congressman mouthed something off mic. "Is she insane?" Barron narrowed his eyes. "You're bluffing." Jasmine turned, finally, and met his gaze. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You said no one rewrote your story," she said. "But what if the first draft was a lie?" The air snapped. A bottle cap clicked open in the press box. Somewhere on Twitter, the clip already had 600,000 views. Barron's lawyer leaned in, whispering fast. Jasmine's hand hovered over the seal. Red tape, a date stamp, one line of handwriting barely visible in the camera's frame. Every camera zoomed closer, because she was about to unseal something that had stayed buried for 27 years. And the only question left hanging in that electric silence was it courage or suicide, unsealing a file that could destroy the Trump dynasty? He snapped. She doesn't belong here. Deport her! Barron's voice hit like a slap, sharp, entitled, and echoing across the House chamber. For a split second, it felt like the air itself recoiled. Even the marble walls seemed to tighten. No one moved. One Republican congressman shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Another looked down at his phone, pretending not to hear. Even Barron's own attorney froze, mid-sentence, eyes wide. The words had been said, and they couldn't be taken back. Jasmine didn't flinch, didn't glance at the cameras or the audience, or even Barron. Her hands moved slowly, deliberately, closing the red-sealed file in front of her without saying a word. One soft click, and that was it. She didn't speak because she didn't have to. The entire room already knew. That silence didn't mean surrender. It meant judgment. It meant restraint sharper than any outburst. Reporters in the press gallery stared at one another in disbelief. One whispered, "Did he just say that on live TV?" Hashtags lit up in real time. Deport her. Then immediately, she didn't flinch. A CNN anchor muttered off mic, "We just witnessed a generational shift." Barron sat stiff in his seat, jaw tight, nostrils flaring. He looked like a man who just realized he'd gone too far, but didn't know how to walk it back. His confidence was still there, but the mask had slipped. And Jasmine? She stared straight ahead, eyes calm, spine unshaken. Her silence roared louder than any rebuttal. It said everything without saying a thing, because sometimes power screams, and sometimes real strength just watches it crumble. When silence is louder than rage, what comes next? It took less than 4 hours for the firestorm to start. Every major network looped the same clip. Barron Trump, live on national TV snarling, "Deport her." The words bounced through headlines like bullets. The Washington Post, Trump airs outburst shocks Hill. Fox News, Barron defends mother from radical attack. MSNBC, echoes of tyranny in congressional hearing. Online, it was worse. Conservative pundits rallied to his side. "He's young," they said. "He was protecting his family." Some called Jasmine aggressive, disrespectful, un-American. One commentator on primetime cable smiled as he said, "She should watch her mouth or pack a bag." The death threats followed fast. Anonymous emails, voicemails, envelopes with no return address. "Go back to Africa. We know where you park. America's watching, and you're done." Her staff locked the office. Capitol Police were notified. But Jasmine, she refused to flinch. At 7:42 a.m., her senior advisor suggested postponing the next hearing. "Let it cool down," he said. "We're ahead in the media. Don't give them another target." She looked up from her desk, dead calm. This was never about media. She tapped the closed file beside her. "They want me to stop because the next page scares them." Her press secretary hesitated. "We're getting calls from voters. Some say you embarrassed the chamber." Jasmine stood, walked to the window. Outside, the Capitol stood against a pink sky. Silent, stone, indifferent. "I didn't come here to blend in," she said. "I came to ask questions no one's ever let us ask." Across the country, people watched replays of the moment she didn't speak. Not the file, not the insult, the silence. Parents watched it with their daughters. Veterans watched it with their flags on the wall. And somewhere, a mother whispered to her child, "That's what strength looks like." So now the question wasn't about Barron. It wasn't about Melania. It wasn't even about Jasmine. It was about every voice that had ever been told to be quiet, to sit down, or to leave. If your daughter was told to leave America for asking a question, what would you do? The hearing resumed under tighter security. 2 Capitol Police officers stood at each door. Jasmine Crockett arrived 10 minutes early, carrying a plain manila envelope. No headlines, no folder with a red seal this time, just paper and stories. She didn't address Barron, not yet. Instead, she reached into the envelope and unfolded a letter. Handwritten, edges worn. She held it up with both hands and began to read. "My husband died in Afghanistan. My son applied for his green card 3 years later. It took 12 years for a reply. By the time it came, he was already deported. Jasmine paused. He never saw his little brother graduate, but Melania's paperwork cleared in under 5 months. The chamber shifted again. Not explosive, just heavy. Like something sacred had been violated and nobody wanted to be the first to admit it. She pulled out a second letter, typed, clinical. Waited 15 years. Lawyer ran off with our money. No appeal. My wife died without ever getting her green card. Please don't let my daughter's file end up in a shredder like her mother's dream. Then came the third, handwritten in blue ink, carefully folded, a tremble in the loops of every G. My son was deported. Hers stayed in a penthouse. The silence this time wasn't political. It was human. Even those who had once rolled their eyes now looked down. Jasmine's voice softened, but it didn't shake. My mother used to clean floors in downtown Dallas. On nights she couldn't afford a sitter, I slept on break room couches. I remember her wiping fingerprints off windows while someone else's child screamed into a cell phone in French. She looked up, and I remember the day my father cried because my cousin was sent back to Haiti. No lawyer, no hearing, just gone. Barron didn't speak. He didn't move. The weight of those letters had shifted the ground beneath his name. Jasmine folded the last letter slowly, deliberately. This isn't about Melania, she said. This is about what money lets you skip and what skin makes you wait. She placed the envelope down, quiet, steady. What if justice isn't broken, just only accessible to the wealthy? C-SPAN replayed the clip every hour on the hour. Barron Trump's voice sharp and cold. Deport her! But it wasn't his face that America remembered. It was hers. Jasmine Crockett, still, calm, unshaken. No outrage, no reply. Just silence that cut sharper than any insult. By noon, the image had gone viral. Her folded hands, her steady eyes. 1,000 edits, remixes, side-by-side clips. TikTok teens, Vietnam vets, immigration lawyers. Everyone shared it. This is what grace looks like under fire. The next morning, she stood at the pulpit of New Hope Baptist Church. No cameras were invited. They came anyway. The church was full. Wooden pews creaked as people stood shoulder to shoulder, some in suits, some in scrubs, all watching the woman who'd just become a symbol. Jasmine took the mic with no notes, no podium, just presence. I didn't come to scream, she said. I didn't come to shame. I came to ask a question, and they told me to leave the country for it. She looked out across the sea of faces, mothers, teachers, veterans with medals on their chest. I won't be erased by entitlement. I won't be bullied into silence because I wasn't born into a name. The crowd erupted. Some clapped, some wept, some just nodded, holding on to every word like a lifeline. Outside, across the street, someone held a cardboard sign that read, "She didn't yell, she just stood." And somewhere in homes across the country, people who had never cared about hearings, about politics, about green cards, leaned in. Because now it wasn't about paperwork. It was about power and the woman who dared to speak against it. Can a single voice still bend the arc of a nation toward justice? The doors opened without a word, but the ripple they created swallowed the entire chamber. Phones paused mid-scroll. Pens froze in midair. Even the murmur from the back row dissolved like smoke. Jasmine Crockett stood at the committee bench, posture firm, voice low and composed. "Madam Chair," she said, not looking at Barron, "the committee will now hear testimony from a surprise witness, retired immigration official Linda Chavez." She entered without theatrics. No designer suit, no entourage, just a navy skirt suit, thick glasses, and a worn leather folder tucked under one arm. Her heels echoed once, then stopped. Every member of that chamber, Republican and Democrat, leaned forward just slightly. They didn't know what was coming, but something in the air warned them it wouldn't be forgettable. Linda took the oath with zero hesitation. Her voice didn't tremble. Her hands didn't shake. "I served as deputy director in the EB-1 visa processing unit from 1993 through 1999, she began. "During my tenure, I reviewed thousands of applications. Then she looked straight at Barron Trump. One of them was Melania. The name cracked the air like a fault line. Cameras zoomed in, searching for a reaction. Barron didn't blink, but his fingers clenched the edge of his chair. Jasmine stayed still, watching, listening, waiting. Linda continued, "The application didn't meet threshold criteria. No patents, no publications, no national awards, certainly no extraordinary ability." She opened the folder slowly and pulled out a single page, yellowed with age, marked Internal Memo. EB1 Processing, 1996. She read it aloud, clear and unblinking. Political directive. Expedite immediately. Trump organization involved. Someone in the audience gasped. A murmur broke out near the Republican bench. A staffer dropped a pen and didn't bother to pick it up. Barron's legal team huddled suddenly, whispering like firefighters behind a spreading blaze. But Linda didn't stop. "I flagged the application twice. Both times I was told it came from high above. Expedite or reassign, they told me." Her voice hardened. "That's not immigration law. That's influence laundering." Jasmine remained still, but her eyes met Linda's for the first time. There was no triumph in her expression, just confirmation. For a country built on lines and quotas and endless waiting rooms, what had just been revealed wasn't a leak. It was a rupture. Jasmine nodded once, signaling her team. The screen behind them flickered to life. A scanned image of the memo, complete with stamp, signature, and that now infamous phrase in black ink, per Trump org. Expedite immediately. Linda closed her folder. "I don't come with politics. I came with the truth I've been holding for 27 years. No one in the room had a rebuttal. The myth had cracked. And now the only question echoing in every corner of America was this: should politics ever touch the law of entry? Jasmine didn't say a word. She simply tapped the screen beside her, and it came to life. A black and white photocopy filled the monitors around the chamber. At the top, affidavit of Melania, dated March 1996. Below that, in cursive, the statement, "I am an internationally published model with features in major magazines across Europe and the United States." And beneath it all, her signature, sharp, deliberate, under oath. The room shifted, slowly, quietly. Members of the committee leaned forward. Some narrowed their eyes. Others scribbled notes like they didn't want to miss a single detail. But Jasmine wasn't finished. She looked up at the chair. "With your permission, I'd like to play a video for the record." The chair nodded, no objections. The screen changed again, this time to a grainy interview clip from 2001. Melania Trump sat on a beige couch, laughing lightly under studio lights. The host asked, "When did you first publish work here in the States?" Melania smiled and replied, almost playfully, "My first published shoot in the US was in 1997. I was very excited. That was it. 15 seconds of tape. But it detonated like a grenade. Gas rippled across the room, audible, unapologetic. Someone in the back whispered, "Did she just..." but couldn't finish the sentence. Then Barron stood. He shoved back his chair so hard it hit the wooden paneling with a crack. His voice boomed across the chamber, red with fury. "This is a circus. You're digging up old tapes and twisting everything." The committee chair slammed the gavel once. "Mr. Trump, you are out of order. Sit down immediately or be removed from this hearing." Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. She leaned forward, voice low, calm as ice. "This isn't a circus. This is Congress. And this is the law." Barron didn't sit, not right away. But he didn't speak again either, because the evidence wasn't rhetoric. It wasn't spin. It was a signature on a form and a voice on a tape, separated by 5 years, but now standing side by side under the light. Jasmine looked at the room, but she wasn't asking for belief. She was asking for accountability, because when a lie pierces the seal of privilege, it doesn't just tear paper, it draws blood. When the truth pierces bloodlines, what's left standing? The moment the clip ended, Barron's attorney stood so fast his chair nearly toppled. His voice strained against decorum. "Madam Chair, we request an immediate recess to confer with counsel. This has gone beyond the scope of this hearing." The chair didn't answer right away. Eyes darted across the dais. Cameras didn't blink. And Jasmine? She was already reaching into her briefcase. She pulled out a sealed envelope marked Internal Ledger, Trump Organization, confidential use only. No theatrics, just facts. With one hand, she slid it across the table to the committee clerk. Her voice stayed even. These are financial records confirming payment to 3 third-party legal firms specializing in expedited visa processing. The recipient? Melania. The envelope rested between them like a live wire. The room didn't gasp this time. It just held its breath. Barron stared at it, didn't touch it, didn't speak. His jaw was tight now, not with anger, but something quieter, something heavier. Jasmine could see it, so could America. He looked like a man watching a legacy slip through his fingers. Reporters near the wall frantically typed. One of them mouthed, "This is it." Another leaned into her phone. "Get a quote from DHS now. This is about to explode." The chair granted a 5-minute recess. Barron didn't leave the room. He just sat there, hands clenched, eyes burning into the table. Outside, the Capitol steps were no longer quiet. Veterans in dress blues stood beside immigrant families, waving small American flags. A woman held up a sign that read, "My son waited 12 years. Hers waited 5 months." Another read, "She speaks for us." The chants were soft, but they grew with every second the hearing aired. Inside, Jasmine remained still. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just waited, like a wall that refused to move. Because this wasn't about spectacle anymore. This wasn't even about Barron. It was about whether the American dream had been sold to the highest bidder behind closed doors, and whether a woman with no family fortune, no famous name, and no fear could drag it back into the light. In America, is bloodline a shield or a weapon? The chamber was silent. No gavel, no whispers. Even the air felt heavy, like the walls themselves were bracing for what was coming. Jasmine Crockett rose slowly. No theatrics, no papers rustling. Just a woman standing, unshaken, unapologetic. She didn't wait for permission. Her voice, when it came, was clear and sharp, slicing through the tension like a scalpel. "When you say deport me," she said, eyes locked on Barron, "what you really mean is, don't question me." She paused just long enough for the words to sting. Don't question your advantage. Don't question how this country bent for you, while breaking the rest of us. She reached into her folder and pulled out something small and worn. Not a document, not evidence, just a faded pocket constitution, creased at the spine. She held it up, not to grandstand, but to remind. "This paper protects me," she said softly. "Not my skin, not my family name. Just this, and the courage to use it." The room didn't breathe. Barron's lips parted as if to interrupt, but he stopped himself. The chair didn't move. No one did. Jasmine let the moment stretch, her silence deliberate, letting the weight of what she held in her hand say more than her voice ever could. She continued, quieter now, but firmer. "I don't come from legacy. I come from long nights, second jobs, and prayers whispered between shifts. I come from people who paid taxes, served in wars, but still got asked for proof they belonged." Her eyes swept the room, not angry, not pleading, just unflinching. And maybe that's the problem. We've mistaken silence for submission, but silence is not consent, and today, silence ends. Someone in the gallery stood, then another. The press didn't speak, but their cameras trembled. This wasn't politics anymore. It was memory. It was inheritance. It was reckoning in real time. And Jasmine, still holding the Constitution in one hand, stepped back from the mic. Her voice dropped to a whisper, almost lost in the stillness. "Isn't that the American promise we all forgot?" The door clicked shut behind her. Jasmine Crockett didn't look back. No aides at her side, no cameras in her face, just the long marble corridor echoing beneath her heels. She walked out of the chamber alone, but America followed. Within an hour, "We Stand with Jasmine" was the #1 trending tag on every platform. Celebrities reposted the clip. Veterans stitched her speech over folded flags. A former judge called it the most disciplined moment of civic courage I've seen in 2 decades. By nightfall, the hearing had 8.2 million views and counting. Cable news split down the center. Some conservative hosts doubled down, calling her dangerous, divisive, ungrateful. But others broke ranks. One Republican senator tweeted, "What happened today wasn't strength. It was inherited fear dressed in arrogance." His replies exploded. Thousands called it the first honest statement from his office in years. Jasmine never responded. She didn't need to. That single moment, her hand on the Constitution, her voice still and unshaken, had ricocheted across dinner tables, classrooms, factory floors. A woman in Detroit posted, "I didn't know who she was. Now my daughter wants to be her." A retired immigration officer wrote, "We saw this injustice every day, but today someone said it out loud." And yet, through all the noise, Jasmine stayed quiet. She returned to her office just before midnight. No press conference, no tweets. Just a single photo posted by a staffer, her desk light on, the Constitution open beside a cup of cold tea. It didn't need a caption, because something had shifted, not just in Washington, but in the people watching it. They'd heard power speak, then they heard the truth answer. And now the question didn't belong to Congress or cable news or political dynasties. It belonged to us. When truth echoes louder than power, what do we do next? The next day there were no cameras, no suits, no marble floors, just cracked pavement, a rusted swing set, and the hum of cicadas over the rooftops of South Dallas. Jasmine Crockett sat on a faded bench outside the rec center where her mother used to wait tables on weekends. The same place she once did homework by vending machine light. Around her, 5 little girls from her district leaned in close. One held a plastic folder like it was a microphone. Another wore a blazer 2 sizes too big, borrowed from her aunt just to meet Congresswoman Crockett. One of them, quiet and wide-eyed, asked in a whisper, "Will they try to deport you again?" Jasmine didn't flinch, didn't laugh. She smiled the kind of smile that only comes from surviving something you weren't supposed to. "Maybe," she said, resting a hand on the girl's shoulder. "But this time, the whole world's watching." They didn't fully understand it yet, but they felt it, that something had changed, that someone who looked like them, sounded like them, stood and didn't fold when power roared. As the sun dipped behind the buildings, the girls began to run across the cracked basketball court, shouting, laughing, free. Jasmine stayed behind for a moment longer. She looked out over the place that built her, the place that raised her to know how to fight without hate, to speak without shouting, to resist without ever leaving her seat. She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to, because the truth had already been spoken. And even if power tried to bury it again, it was too late. It was already moving, already alive. Sometimes justice whispers, but when enough of us listen, it roars. In a country where power is often inherited but truth must be earned, calm, unwavering courage can shake the foundations more than any shout. Jasmine didn't need a famous name or a raised voice, just one hand on the Constitution and a question no one dared to ask. And the nation had no choice but to listen. How long has it been since you believed an honest question could still change something? Courage is the fire that keeps democracy alive, and silence is what kills it. If this story moved you, don't just keep it to yourself. Hit subscribe, like, and share so the truth can travel further. Because every time you speak up, light finds its way through the dark. This story is created for inspiration and reflection. It does not represent any individual or organization. Viewer interpretation and discussion are encouraged, but final responsibility rests with each audience member. Now it's your turn. What do you believe is the strongest weapon against tyranny? Truth, courage, or unity? Drop your answer below. I'll be reading your comments.